Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm really excited because yesterday I went to Plastic City Comic Con in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and I've got a convention report for you right now. When I say I went to it, I mean I actually had a table at the show. And so it's a very different experience when you're behind the table. It means that I actually didn't get to see everything for reasons that I'll get into in a minute. And it's a very long day, but it's always a lot of fun. I actually really enjoy doing these conventions, even though I haven't been super successful at them yet. It's just fun to be part of the atmosphere, and you get to meet all these other great indie creators and stuff. So I really enjoy it. As you know, I've had a lot of health issues, and it's really difficult for me to actually do a table. The standing bothers my feet. The sitting bothers other parts of me, and so it was a long and difficult day, but it was really cool. I was really happy to get back out there on the convention circuit, and I got to see a bunch of cool stuff and bought a couple things. But I've got a lot of stuff to show you because my wife was with me. My wonderful wife, who was very supportive and helped me run the table. And while I was behind the table, she also got to go around the show and check out all the booths. And she's really good at doing that, actually. In some ways, she's better than I am because, I'm laser focused on the comics. And I've been doing this for so long that, sometimes I don't give everything the attention it should get because, I look over and I'm like, image, not for me. And I just keep going, whereas she actually takes a look at everything. So the result is that she ended up buying a giant pile of cool comics. So I'm going to go through all the stuff I got. I'm going to show you all the cool books that my wife got. So the show is in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. It's called Plastic City Comic Con. And Plastic City, for those of you who know or don't know, is actually the neighboring city of Leominster, Massachusetts. The show was originally in Leominster, and they'd had it 1 year in Leominster, and then it had like a massive turnout that was like way bigger than they expected. So they had to move it to Fitchburg to get a bigger venue. So it's still called Plastic City, but it's in Fitchburg. And the last couple of years they haven't had it because of COVID, so it's really exciting to be back. It's held at a place called the Wallach Civic Center, which is a hockey rink. So basically, the rink itself is the convention floor. And the first year I was there, it was like they had the rink turned on and it was freezing. And so the second year, they adjusted that. So they got rid of that. And the result was that it was blazing hot. So they finally figured it out this year. They didn't have the AC or the fans or whatever was turned on when we first got there to set up in the morning. So it was like unbelievably hot in there for the first like hour, but once it got going, it was totally fine. And I think it's a great show for fans. So I love going to the show as a fan, and there's a lot of vendors. And it's comics centric. I would say comics only, but there were a couple people there that weren't really comics, but were adjacent. Like there was a roller derby team that was there. So cool stuff. But it's almost all comics and very, very friendly to indie comics and self-published comics and creators, because the guy who runs it, Keith, is a indie comic creator himself. He does the series Mighty Mascots, which is about a bunch of cereal box mascots that come to life and form a superhero team. And it's a lot of fun. It's put out by Alterna. And I've talked about it before. So Keith is very supportive of the community. And so I would say that there are a lot of tables there, like a lot of tables. I don't know how many there were, but there had to have been 100 vendors. I mean, there was a lot of people. And doing my math, I feel that's close. If not 100, very close to 100. Let's say between 100, between 80 and 120, somewhere in there. A lot of vendors. Probably 2/3 of them are indie. Are basically Artist Alley makes up more than half of the show, but they do have a lot of back issues and collectibles and stuff as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff. In terms of my show, so The table was $70, and then at the last minute, I decided, because of some of the logistic issues and my health stuff, I decided it would just be a lot easier if I rented the table and chairs that were already set up there rather than bringing my own. So I paid an extra $35 for that. So it was $105 for the table. I ended up selling $87 worth of comics. So I did not make table, as they say in the business. I was $22 short of that. But I totally butchered that math. I was $18 short of that. So I got close to getting my money back, and I met a lot of cool people. There was one guy, I was out at the bathroom for a few minutes, and when I came back, a guy had come by the table, and he wanted to talk to me about boy comics and about public domain stuff and all this stuff. And he said he was going to come back to get the boy comics variants, and he never came back. I waited all day for this guy to come back because I really want anyone who actually knows about boy comics, the original Golden Age series that my series, The Crime Busters, is based on, and wants to talk about it. I always want to talk to those people. And so just like that one moment where someone actually showed up for that, I happened to be in the bathroom. So that was really frustrating. But it was a really cool experience, and we bought a ton of stuff. So I'm going to start with the only back issue I got. Now, I did not have much time to go around the show, so I did not have much time to look for back issues. So I just went around and asked everyone if they had romance, and there was a couple tables that did, but there was basically one guy who had quite a few Charlton romance books, like quite a few, probably a short box almost of Charlton romance, and he had some of the older stuff, a few things from the late 50s, just a handful that I wanted, but they were more than I wanted to pay. And then, it gets really, there's so many Charlton comics from the Bronze Age that, honestly, I didn't actually look through all of them. But I did buy one. It's I Love You 110, and the reason I got it is because of the condition. Now, it does have some dings here along the spine, and it's got a little bit of something up here, but it's very flat, clean, and super white. Charlton, terrible paper quality. The white books are really hard to find that are actually white, and so this is like a nice, like real white. So I got it because it's not a condition you see the Charlton romance comics in very often. And also, love Art Capello, as you know, so we got some cool Art Capello art, and then we have this thought balloon from the lady. Dennis Boland would date a hag riding a broomstick if it would help his career, including the boss's daughter. Well, I'll fix him. So that's just a fantastic thought balloon. So that was the only back issue I bought. I did buy, however, as you know, I really like to support other indie creators, so I did buy a couple things. I got this Age of Night Volume 1. I have not had a chance to read it yet. As you can see, it's a whole book. It's almost 200 pages. And this is Volume 1. It's by written and illustrated by Amanda Call, who is the person that I bought it from. And it was on discount. So normally, I'm not sure, I think it's normally 20, but it was on sale for 10. And there's 2 more volumes out. So there's like hundreds and hundreds of pages of this. And it looks like it's a fantasy epic. Or it might be historical. I'm not quite sure which. It's either one or the other, or both. So it looks really cool. I have not had a chance to read it yet, but I'm really excited to dive in. And for the price, I couldn't, turn it down for that price. So I'm really looking forward to digging into that. I also got this. It's Legends of Lys, or Lys. I'm gonna say Lys. Issues 1 and 2. So it's a collected thing. It's interesting. It says issue 1, but then there's a previously in Legends of Lys. So I don't know. But it's a fantasy story about a girl being trained as a paladin. And it's got sort of, the 80s indie aesthetic to it. It was a fun story. It was also on sale. You see it says $10 on the cover, but it was actually $5. He said that he's done a trade collection because there's more issues out, and everything's been colorized and stuff. And so he's trying to get rid of these, which I totally get, because at some point I'm going to be needing to do the same with all of the stuff that I have left over that's in black and white from Crime Busters once I put out the color trade paperback. So something I'm thinking about a lot these days. Yeah, so I did read that. That one was cool. And then we have here The Lucky Ones, a World War II combat engineers story. And, I like my World War II stories. This is the first issue of an 8-issue series. And I did read this, and it was cool. I'm interested in picking up some of the next ones. This goes through sort of basic training. There's like a frame story where there's a guy whose grandson is dragging him to this combat engineer World War II reunion, and so he's opening up about his past for the first time and that sort of thing, and then the rest of it's flashback, what happened during the war. So this is the beginning of the basic training story. So I liked it. So those are the only things I bought, but my wife bought a giant pile of stuff, like a huge pile of comics. So one of the things that the one thing I knew I was going to buy at the show was the series called Juvenile Diversion, from Heather Farrington. Now, Heather Farrington is a name you might have heard on my channel before, because she drew the Trixie's Mysteries variant cover for issue 2 of my series, The Crime Busters. And I had her do that because I had gotten one issue of her comic Juvenile Diversion when we met at a show in Vermont in 2019. Somewhere on the channel, there's a convention report for that convention. And she had 4 issues out. I only bought the first one because I didn't have much money with me that day. And I was like, I told her I would come back for them, and I haven't seen her since then. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get issues 2, 3, and 4. However, before I had a chance to even leave my table, my wife came back and told me she had bought the whole series herself. So I ended up not buying them because my wife bought them. But I do already have a copy of this. It's Juvenile Diversion #1. And this is a series that's sort of, it's set in the 80s, and it's sort of inspired by, like, there's definitely sort of an Archie feel, but it's more sort of like, 80s teen movies and stuff like that. And sort of, there's like music involved, there's a lot of high school stuff. So anyway, I really like her art style, which has evolved a bit from here, since she did these 4 or 5 years ago now. Here's issue 2. Looking forward to reading these later issues, which I have not read. Issue number 3 and issue number 4. So I was really excited to get those. I'm a big fan of Heather's artwork. So hopefully at some point in the future, maybe I can get her to do something else for me as well, for another issue. But I was really excited to get that. So I was happy that my wife bought them, because now I can read them. Let's see. Now, she got a couple things here. A lot of self-published stuff. It's the Skin of My Teeth #1 Ash Can. I haven't really had a chance to look through her pile of stuff that closely, so I'm not entirely sure what some of the stuff is. But I always love these sort of DIY books, and here's another one that from the same creator. My Coworker is a Vampire, which is a story about it's basically about how problems at work with coworkers, but turned into an EC horror comic. So that's cool. She also got this this little adaptation of The Raven, which is sort of like a modern sort of look at the poem. So that's cool. Now, there's a lot of people at the show that had anthologies, so this is something I found interesting. The guy next to me was selling all this stuff. He had 2 or 3 big books on his table, and he was doing pretty well with them, selling them. And come to find out that they're anthologies that he has a story in, but he's not the publisher of them. And I realized that a lot of the people around me actually had the same anthologies. So the multiple creators just on my row had contributed to the same anthologies. And if you walk down, you could find this on multiple tables. It's called The Great Commandment. And it's it's a comic book anthology by indie creators, all different art styles and stuff. And I forget exactly what it's about, but there's like a theme that goes through it. There's something to do with, I don't remember. I don't know if it's religion and dealing with loss or something like that. Maybe. My wife really liked the cover. But what is one thing that I'm definitely sort of interested in keeping in mind, like I haven't contributed anything to any anthologies. I haven't submitted to any of these anthologies. There are people putting out these anthologies all the time, and I've been really focused on doing my own thing, right? But it does get your name out there. You get to say you worked with like all these other cool creators, and sort of puts you in the same field, but it also gives you this interesting product to sell at your tables. I don't do many conventions, so that's it's questionable how useful that is to me unless I start doing 8 or 10 conventions a year, but it's something I'm keeping in mind. Another creator that my wife's stopped by to buy stuff from is a guy named Chris Gugliotti. She bought a few things. He has a series called Playing Dead. There's a trade, looks like, for volume 1, and then here's part of the beginning of book 2. There's a guy named Joseph Schmelke, and he has some interesting looking books. Like, he has a very distinctive style, so check that out. He has a really interesting table display as well. And I'm sorry I don't have footage from the inside of the convention, though I meant to mention this earlier. I was planning on doing footage right at the end, so I was like, I'm going to wait once it slows down, gets to like 5 o'clock, because it was going to 6, and there's fewer people around, that I'm going to walk around, and I'm going to videotape everyone and everything, because I didn't want to take my phone away from the table earlier than that, because in case people were buying with a credit card, I needed it for them to scan it and whatever, so blah blah blah. And people, like, the crowds definitely thinned out after 4, and so a couple people, including Joseph Schmelke, they basically packed up at like 4:30 and left, and the show was going till 6, and more people started packing up, and so at 5, I started walking around, and everyone's packing up to leave, and it's like a whole hour left in the show. And it was so I was running around trying to get to tables before they disappeared, and it was a little frustrating. You know, eventually, about 5:30, we started packing up, but I made sure, we had a lot of display stuff that we had to break down, but I made sure that we kept the actual comics out available for anybody until 6. And I didn't sell any that last hour, but when the time that came when I was gonna go and walk around and take video, there was nothing. Like, the only thing, it would have really stunk, because half of the tables were either gone or being packed up into like crates, and you couldn't really see anything, and I didn't want to give the wrong impression of the convention. So I have a couple photos, that I showed earlier, of my table, but I don't have any footage because it closed up. So that was something where maybe next time, I haven't given any feedback to Keith about the show, but maybe the show only needs to run till 4, because there were a few people that were still there after 5, and I heard a couple of them basically complaining that everybody was leaving before they had a chance to even see anything. So, but Joseph Schmelke, he had this crazy ass banner which came up on this post and then was like came over the top, so it was sort of like coming out, and it was like 11 feet tall. It was like this huge hanging over the top of your table banner, instead of one of those just like standees behind you. Yeah, he has a very um, specific sort of graphic visual style that caught my wife's eye. Some of these, so they're put out by Black Caravan, but down here it says a Scout Comics imprint. This is called We Don't Kill Spiders. And I like this guy's art quite a bit. There's definitely a horror tinge to all of this stuff that I'm seeing. Here's one, and I'm blanking on the person's name, a historical figure who would bathe in the blood of young women to try and stay young or whatever. And this is a comic about that. There was a couple times when I was walking around looking at people's stuff, you know, there's a lot of horror there, a lot of horror. And you know, my stuff it has Cthulhu in it. It's not really horror per se. It's more adventure, mystery, like supernatural mystery stuff. But there was a lot of horror comics. At one table, the guy asked what I collected, and I said I was just looking for romance stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I've got romance." And the romance he had was about like a serial killer who falls in love with a severed finger, and it could be very cool. But I was like, not for me. That's just I don't do well with horror. I don't like horror, so I don't know. My wife, you know, enjoys it more than I do. So here's a book. The guy sitting right across from us was the creator of Stephen Struble. It's The Little Depressed Boy. And again, I can't talk too much about what these are about yet because I haven't read them. And that's one thing about like the indie books is sometimes you have no idea what they're about. For instance, now this is an older book, it's 2014, but a guy had it and it caught my wife's eye. It's a comic called Owl Girls, and it's like this cool sort of like 30s sort of noir style to it. This is the first page here, right? And it's got this sort of noir feel, really cool art. And then for reasons that I don't know because I haven't read it, for some reason there's some people in the book, a group of women who have owl heads. So my wife saw that, the disconnect between the art style and the women with the owl heads, and of course she had to buy it. I don't think we have another man gull here, but who knows. So then we've got, this is from a team, I'm trying to recognize from the names which of these people was at the show. I'm not really sure, but they're both from something called United Comics, so maybe that's the theme. So anyway, we have here Blackthorn, Discovering Miranda, which has an interesting art style. And they have Alien Summer Convention Edition. Just looking at the art here. I'm currently working on a comic which is going to be reprinting a bunch of Golden Age stuff, and I'm struggling to find scans that are high enough resolution because my printer wants things that are at least 300 DPI, and the highest I can get right now seems to be only half of that, 144. Now, it looks okay when I blow it up. It's just maybe slightly blurry, but it's hard to even tell with the Golden Age stuff whether that's because of the scan or not, because so many Golden Age books were just like not printed well, and so a lot of them are blurry just to begin with. So I think they would look okay, but I'm not sure, and I'm very hesitant about even trying to print without being 100% sure, because a huge pet peeve of mine is pixelization on printed comics. Now, my first couple issues of Crime Busters, the logo that I had was not quite high enough resolution, and you don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. Or if you're really, spend a little while looking at the logo, it's just slightly fuzzy, and I got that fixed with issue 3, and when been doing reprints, I've been trying to fix it on the previous issues. So that's fixed for now, but it drove me crazy. And when I see books that are pixelated, so this looks like a really cool book. I just had to pause because I noticed that, I don't know if you can see, but the file for the cover was not quite high enough resolution. So it is slightly pixelated. So like it looks fine at arm's length, but it's just a little bit pixelated. And I like the art style, and the inside looks okay. It does not immediately look to be pixelated to me on the inside. And I have books that I've bought from indie creators where the art is just pixelated through the whole thing because they're printing it from files that are too small to be printed. So anyway, it just got distracted because I wanted to see, but it looks cool. Don't know anything about it. Here's a book that is super cool in concept, although my wife found it actually a little bit frustrating to read, but the concept is so great. It's called Beyond the Demon, the Sea. Right? It's from Source Point Press, and it's a comic where the entire story is told through tattoos. So it's a sailing story, and all the panels are basically tattoos, which I think is a brilliant idea. But there's some execution issues that my wife that were bothering my wife. It just didn't quite work for her the way she hoped, because it's such a great idea. But it's super cool. Here's the Seance Room, another Source Point Press book, although I'd swear I'm pretty sure I have seen at my LCS, that's Entertainment, a previous edition of this from when he was self-publishing it. Like, I'm trying to even find a date in here, because it does say that it was the copyright originally was 2016, but this is much newer. This is a newer printing, so I'm pretty sure. But this has a really cool. I love the logo. It's got really cool artwork, and the guy that did this had actually done like an album. I had like an album you could get with the music goes with this. I guess he's a professional musician. So that's what I'm looking forward to reading, because I've seen it. It's at my LCS, that's Entertainment in Worcester. They have this section that's local indie, creators, and my issue, Crime Busters #1 is there, and it's been sitting next to the Seance Room. So I keep seeing that book. But I haven't actually bought it. So I'm curious to get that. And then finally, my wife bought this. It's Runners, Volume 1 by Sean Wang. And this came out quite a while ago. So, yeah, quite a while ago, 2003 to 2005. And there's a lot of similarities with Firefly, and he was telling my wife that like when it came out, Firefly came out at the same time, and he was like, oh crap, everyone's gonna think I stole it from Firefly. But it ended up working out fine, because then Firefly got canceled, and so he said that there were like reviewers basically like, well, if you're missing Firefly, you can check out Runners. Now the thing is, I've actually read this before. I had the individual issues of this. I don't think I have them anymore. But I'm not sure. I don't think I have them anymore. But I like it's got a cool look. I like the art. It's very colorful. It's very clean. It's cartoony in a way that I guess I could say a lot of books at that time were. Certainly not mainstream, Marvel and DC, because that was a nightmare time for that. But it's just a cool sci-fi book. I like the design. I like the logo, the colors, and everything. So anyway, I'll have to reread that, because I remember liking it, but I don't remember anything else about it. So that was it. You can see my wife bought a ton of cool stuff. I bought a few cool things. I'm looking forward to diving into a lot of this stuff and reading it. I love to support the community. Great show. I certainly recommend anybody that is in the area come down next year to Plastic City, because Keith runs a really good show, and there are a lot of cool back issues there. I just didn't have time to look through them. And tons of local indie creators. There's a huge community here in Massachusetts and New England of self-published indie creators, and Keith puts on a great show that really spotlights a lot of those people. So that's it. I hope you enjoy, and let me know what you think down below. I'll see you next time.